Welcome to Everything Co-op, bringing you information on how cooperatives can help improve your quality of life. This show is being sponsored by the National Co-op Bank, NCB. The NCB is dedicated to strengthening communities nationwide for the delivery of banking and financial services for the nation's cooperatives, their members, and other socially responsible organizations. For more information on the power of community ownership, visit ncb.coop. That's ncb.coop. Now stay tuned for your host, Vernon Oakes.
Good morning, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes, Everything Cooperative. We're talking about cooperative today, and we're going to talk about some of the things that Donald Trump has put in place in his first 14, 15 days, and how it relates to cooperatives. And we're talking to Justin Fairfax this morning. Good morning, Justin.
Good morning, Vernon. Happy to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on this morning. And you were running for Virginia Lieutenant Governor.
That is correct. This year in 2017, Virginia has statewide elections, and we have a primary on June the 13th.
Okay, so you have about 4 more months or so to get all your ducks in a line.
That's correct. About 123 days, but I'm not counting. Right?
How many hours?
But that's exactly right. On June the 13th, in a little over 4 months.
All right. Fantastic. Justin, what I want to do is talk about some of the things that you're doing, some of the things that Donald Trump is doing, and how that relates to co-ops. Right. For instance, Donald Trump is wanting to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act. That's one of the first things he wanted to do in his executive orders. And how do you feel about that? And particularly if they don't put anything in place, and how does that work in Virginia for you?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I am 100% opposed to the repeal of the Affordable Care Act. I think it is a law that has done a tremendous amount of good. More than 20 million additional Americans have been insured since that law took effect. It was one of the signature achievements of President Obama's administration. And in Virginia, we've had hundreds of thousands of Virginians who have gained health insurance coverage since the law's enactment. And while we did not expand Medicaid in Virginia, which I absolutely believe we should, because it would cover an additional 400,000 Virginians, we still have seen tremendous benefits from the Affordable Care Act, and not to mention what we've seen nationwide. So, I've also, seen and read reports where those who wish to repeal the Affordable Care Act, this administration, Republicans in Congress, don't really have a plan as to what they would replace it with. And given that they have been, attacking this law now for, going on 7 years, and to not have a plan, I think does a disservice to all Americans, to this economy, to the ability for Americans to access health care. And so I am in support of the law. I feel like we can tweak it to make it better, but we absolutely should not repeal that law because it would harm so many people, including here in Virginia.
They talk about 20 to 30 million people it would harm.
That's correct, which is just a tremendous number of people. And we know about features of the law that are wildly popular. For instance, allowing young people to stay on their parents' insurance until the age of 26, which frankly helps them not only with regard to health insurance, but to really start to get an economic foothold in their lives so that they can not worry about that coverage and instead can go out and get a higher education and vocational training, buy a home, start a family, get access to capital to start and grow a small business. And that really has been the focus, again, of our campaign for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, is creating more economic security and opportunity for all Virginians. And no matter where you start, how much money your family has, who you love, your color of your skin, you should get a chance for economic mobility and to rise and to have more security in your life and in your family's life. And the Affordable Care Act is a big cornerstone of that for so many families.
And the other thing it does is pre-existing conditions. You can get coverage.
Absolutely. That's a huge, huge part of it, Vernon, is not discriminating against people based upon pre-existing conditions. And again, we have had people testify, in many cases, even on national television, that they would not be alive but for the Affordable Care Act, including some people who did not vote for President Obama, who have since said that were it not for that law, were it not for the effort made to get rid of the discriminatory pre-existing conditions clause in insurance contracts, they would not be living today. And so I don't know in the face of that how someone could heartlessly want to repeal a law and, again, have nothing to replace it with, leaving people stranded and certainly causing a tremendous amount of damage to people's health and to our economy.
Well, I know you only have 30 minutes to be on with us today, and we could spend the whole 30 minutes talking about this. But let me talk a little bit about co-op. Co-ops are any business you can think of. It could be a cooperative. And I know you have in your what you want to do is increase small businesses. So if the business is owned and controlled by the worker, the employee, it's called a worker cooperative. If the business is owned and controlled by the people that use the products or services, it's called a consumer cooperative. And worker cooperative could be any business, and consumer cooperatives, a lot of times, is housing co-ops, and you have quite a few in Virginia, in Tidewater, Richmond. It could be credit unions, and you have quite a few of those. So anytime that the consumers own and control the business. But the reason I wanted to go there, because the values and principles of co-op, the values and principles, the cooperative members believe in ethical values of honesty, openness, social responsibility, and caring for others. Right. So when you talk about Affordable Care Act, that's caring for each other. That just fits right in with.
Absolutely.
And sometimes I don't understand how politicians can say, and they did it, I don't know, it was 40, 80 times they tried to repeal this thing. To me, it's just because Obama put it in. I mean, no other reason.
Right.
It's just want to be against him. And that hurts people.
That's right.
Okay.
And Vernon, absolutely. And you mentioned co-ops, which are, so important nationwide and also, again, here in Virginia. And you mentioned the various types of co-ops that we do have, credit unions, agricultural, insurance. They really play a significant role in the lives of many Virginians, of many of our small businesses and even large businesses. And as you mentioned, there are values that underlie them that I think are really American values, as you mentioned, of integrity, honesty, ethical behavior. Also, again, making sure that everybody gets an equal and fair opportunity. That's something that undergirds the spirit of what co-ops are all about. And so, we need, people to have more opportunity in this economy and in this society, not less. We don't need to be cutting people out and shutting them down. We need to be opening up opportunities. And so, I think co-ops are really a great way to, democratize opportunity, to really make sure that the people, no matter where they start, that they get a shot in life, and a fair shot in life. And frankly, Vernon, I have a story that probably is like many people's stories, where I've gotten to live a tremendously, wonderful life. But it, started from a very difficult place, where I was raised, primarily by a single mother in inner city Washington, D.C.
So you were raised here? You were raised in D.C.?
I was. Okay. In fact, I was born in Pittsburgh, but my parents got divorced when I was about 5 or 6 years old. And so we moved in with my late maternal grandparents who lived in Northeast Washington, D.C. I grew up right on Evart Street off of North Capitol Street. I'm very proud of our roots there. And my mom, despite, that hardship and the economic havoc in particular and insecurity that, divorce can create, particularly with 4 kids, but she was able to regroup. She is a brilliant woman, a pharmacist. And because we had that security blanket of our grandparents, grandfather was a postal worker for 45 years. Grandmother was a nurse at Freeman's Hospital for 40 years. We got to regroup. My mom then sent all 4 of her children to college and 2 of us to law school. My oldest brother went to Harvard University, Harvard Law School. He was on the law review there. He is now the vice dean at GW Law School. I have a sister, Virginia, who is a labor and delivery nurse. She went to the University of Maryland. I have a brother, Chris, who went to Syracuse University. He is a brilliant engineer in the defense industry. And, I went to Duke University on a partial academic scholarship. And then I went to Columbia Law School. I was on a law review at Columbia, and I've gotten to work at, some wonderful law firms, and I was a federal prosecutor. And now I'm running for lieutenant governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. That is a story that's made in America. And that is a story that is a result of people giving us opportunity, despite where we started. And I want that for every single person in the Commonwealth of Virginia, no matter where they live. And I really want it for everybody in the country as well. And I say what people gave to us, we didn't have a lot of money, but they gave us something I like to call spiritual wealth.
Yep.
They gave us faith and hope, high-quality education. They kept us safe. They gave us opportunity. And I believe that when you get that kind of spiritual wealth in your life, you then have a spiritual debt that you must repay. And for me, that's what public service is all about. It's not about money.
To where much is given, to where much is given,
required.
Much is expected. Yep.
That's right. To whom much is given, of whom much is required, 100%.
You have a wonderful story. You have a wonderful story. And God bless you. Hats off to your grandparents and your mom.
Thank you. And I'd like to say this too, Vernon, because I know you have a great story as well. I truly believe to my core, and I've gotten to talk to so many people, we all have different versions of that exact same story. Where someone, you can, replace my grandparents with someone's aunt, uncle, father, mother, a pastor, a coach, a teacher, a complete stranger. But we've all had people who have come into our lives and done something special, given us spiritual wealth, and changed the entire trajectory of our lives. And so because we all have that different version of that same story, I believe we all can repay the spiritual debt together. And again, that's what this campaign for Lieutenant Governor is all about. It is creating those avenues of opportunity for other people. And I like to say that opportunity is the oxygen of a democracy. Where it exists, people thrive and communities thrive. Where it does not exist, you literally see communities and people die. And so we have got to pump more oxygen into this democracy in the form of opportunity, make higher education and vocational training more affordable, allow people to buy, afford, keep, and pass down their own homes throughout the generations, get access to capital to start and grow a small business. My wife, Dr. Serena Fairfax, and I are small business owners. We bought a family dental practice 10 years ago in Fairfax, Virginia. It's changed everything that's possible in our lives. And yet we were able to do that because we were given access to capital, treated fairly in the markets, given a high-quality education. And so we want that for absolutely everybody. And I believe that we can provide that for everybody.
And I'm finding, I got my MBA. I went the MBA route. And
yes, absolutely.
Nobody talked to us about this co-op model, and I'm finding this co-op model can work because you get a number of people, 3 to 5 people to come together to start that small business. And I'll go over the principles of volunteer and open membership. It doesn't make any difference about the gender or the racial background, political background, religious background, who you choose to marry or anything else. So it's just open and volunteer membership, democratic member control, member economic participation, and this is what I like. You put some money in, and when there's a surplus or profit, you get it back out. So you get that equity and that wealth that you talk about. And the fifth one is the main reason that I started loving co-ops is education, training, and information. And it looks like a lot of your policies and procedures is on this education piece.
Absolutely. It's crucial. Education is so important. And so we want a robust and healthy K through 12 educational system, but also really starting prior to kids even being in kindergarten. Early childhood, as you know, Vernon, very well. 80% of a child's brain is formed by the time they're 3 years old. And so kids are learning an immense amount of information before they step foot in a school, and we have got to nurture and provide them with opportunities. My wife and I, we have a 7-year-old son and a 5-year-old daughter.
Congratulations.
Over the holiday. Thank you. We're very blessed.
We got to take our first break, Justin, and we could talk for 2 hours. I already see this. We got so much in common.
Without question.
But we only have 15 more minutes. We'll take a break, and then we'll come back, and we'll have another 15 minutes. Thank you so much for giving us this
Look forward to it. Thank you so much, Vernon.
Washington, D.C.'s News Talk, 1450 AM WOL and 95.9 FM.
Information is power, and that's the reason that WOL is a great partner to produce this show. The National Cooperative Bank is sponsoring so that you can get information about cooperatives, perhaps go out and start one, or go to shop at a cooperative, and you get power if you use this information that we give you here. Today we have Justin Fairfax, who's running for Virginia Lieutenant Governor, on the line, who grew up right here in D.C. Justin, let's change a little bit to talk about the environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know that you believe in climate change.
Right.
And you want
it's real. and in fact, Vernon, the fact that yesterday it was 70 degrees and a lot of people were out in shorts, and today it's snowing, I think should give some people insight into what's really happening here in the scientific community. Really overwhelmingly has endorsed the notion that climate change is real, that it is caused by human activity, and that we've got to do something now to preserve our planet and our natural resources, and I'm committed to doing that.
Well, Donald Trump is speeding up environmental reviews. He's written to have the Dakota Access Pipeline, the Keystone Pipeline going through. Seems like the Republicans and him and other Republicans don't believe the scientists. I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, and there are so many, and I'll tell you one thing that I've been struck by is that there has been a growing consensus among a number of people, including people in the faith community who believe again that our natural environment, planet, are a sacred trust, something that we have to preserve, and we don't really own our environment. We are borrowing it from our children and our grandchildren. And so we have to pass that down to them and be caretakers of the environment, because it really is about them. In our campaign, we often talk about the future is now. And that really is a policy prism that we look at a lot of policies through. And the environment is a key example of that. I mean, the future is now. What we do today will dictate what our environment, natural resources look like in 30, 40, and 50 years. The Lieutenant Governor of Virginia sits on a number of boards and commissions in the state, including the Governor's Commission on Climate Change and Resiliency. And again, one of the roles is to make sure that we are doing the things today in terms of carbon mitigation, a reduction, looking at renewable sources of energy and fuel, cleaner burning, alternatives to what we have. And again, in an effort to preserve the environment for our kids and for our grandkids. And it has environmental impacts, but it also has significant economic impacts. I spent a lot of time in Hampton Roads, Virginia, Norfolk, Portsmouth, and other areas. If you get a modest rain, oftentimes in those areas, you will get flooding. And we have actually seen the school systems close due to that flooding. And, you can't have a robust economy where you're constantly under the threat of environmental disaster. We have seen what's happened in other states around the country. And so we have got to head that off, again, both for economic reasons, but also really for, moral reasons as well. As I mentioned, we are borrowing this environment and our natural resources from our kids and from our grandkids, and we have to leave it to them in good stead.
Justin, how can people get a hold of you or get a hold of your campaign if they want to contribute some money or man the phones? Or how would they?
Yeah, we would be honored to have the support of everyone for the June 13th primary. They can visit our website, which is at www.fairfax, my last name, Fairfax, 4, spelled out, FORLG, as in Lieutenant Governor.com. So that's Fairfax4LG.com. We are also on Twitter at Fairfax4LG and at Fairfax Justin. And we're on Facebook and Instagram as well. We would be honored to have your listeners support and have them come visit our website, learn more about, our focus on economic security and opportunity, on expanding rights and protecting voting rights, women's reproductive health care, and really just making sure that everybody in this Commonwealth and really in the country gets the same shot at the American dream that we got. It is the spiritual debt that we're repaying, and we're having fun on this campaign. We have seen so much support. Hundreds of people have come out to our campaign kickoffs. I've done 20,000 miles in the car in just the last 10 months all around the Commonwealth, and we're visiting every part of the Commonwealth, South Side, Southwest, Hampton Roads, Richmond, the Shenandoah Valley, Northern Virginia, and people are very excited about this opportunity and about the hope and optimism that we're bringing and in what otherwise is a pretty dark political time. I think people see a ray of hope here in this race in Virginia and the opportunity to really get involved and to do something special.
I grew up in Bluefield, West Virginia, and there is a Bluefield, Virginia, right next door to each other.
Yes, so. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's a great part of the country. You have people there who are tough, who do believe in a lot of those tenets that you mentioned of co-ops, of working together, of giving people opportunity, giving people a fair shot in this country. And, I was just featured in an article by UVA-Y, the student newspaper, the Highland Cavalier. And we talked a lot about, those issues that affect and impact really all of us, but certainly those areas. There are 175,000 unfilled middle skill jobs today in the Commonwealth of Virginia where people need certification and training that they oftentimes can't afford. And so we have got to connect people up with those opportunities, use our community college system to get them that training and certification, make it affordable so they can go from, primarily, service industry jobs where they may not be able to support their family to making a livable wage and frankly, starting to get ahead to make the money they need to buy a home, support their family, get access to capital to start and grow a small business, send their kids to a community college or four-year college. And, people want, again, that oxygen that is the opportunity. And we want to give more opportunity, including in places like Southwest. It's been hit so hard. And you see these economies that are struggling. We want to start to help jumpstart those economies by building infrastructure, bringing broadband, making sure the roadways are there, making sure that our hospital systems are strong. It's hard to try to get a company to relocate a manufacturing facility to a place that doesn't have a hospital, because if your workers get injured or you have employees that want to, have children and start families, you really need that infrastructure of a hospital, roadways, broadband, so that companies can do business and kids can learn, get their assignments online and really keep ahead in their schoolwork. And that's really what we're focused on. It's not been a bitter partisan battle. Some people love to be negative in politics and to fight other politicians. I'd rather fight our problems than fight other politicians. I think that's how we make progress.
Do you have any sanctuary cities in Virginia?
Not that I know of. I know there was a debate with some cities, Richmond being one, and some others. But I think that folks, in light of the executive order that just came out, are starting to, think about policies where they can, make sure that people are not, being ripped apart from their families, that we, don't become a police state. And so, we're seeing that debate, happen around the Commonwealth and around the country. I also, as you may know, a couple of weeks ago, I went out to Dulles Airport. It was a Saturday night, and we saw what was happening at that airport, and, families, again, being unlawfully detained, children being separated from their parents and grandparents, and I felt like we had to do something. So we just hopped in the car, went out to the airport, and I'm a lawyer, so I joined with dozens of other lawyers and hundreds of protesters, and we made it clear to the CBP officers there that we were there to, be the lawyers for every person who got off that plane, and to make sure that they were not unlawfully detained. There was a federal court order that was issued that night that prevented CBP from deporting people for 7 days, and also that ordered CBP to allow those being detained to see their lawyers. So I was very proud to have been there with so many other people, and proud, to report that everyone was able to make it off the plane and be reunited with their families. But, we have just got to be a more caring society. I know that we are better than what that executive order represents. It is shameful, in my view, and it's a dark moment in history. I was heartened by the fact that people are ready to resist and they're ready to fight back, and they're ready to reaffirm and reassert our American values of inclusiveness, of kindness, of caring, of making sure that everybody, again, gets an opportunity in this society. And I'm committed to doing that in our race for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia as well. So
you went out to Dulles, and that worked as a lawyer to support people that were detained.
Absolutely. I did indeed. And again, I was proud to join with dozens of other lawyers. It was totally organic. There was no email that went out. It was, we saw what was happening and felt like we had to do something. And again, I'm proud to say that all those families that night were able to make it off the plane and to be reunited with their families and to get to their destination. These families were scared. Many of them had taken off in their country of origin. Yeah. And midair, life changed for them. And I felt like we had to be there for them to support them. And I've been out to the airport subsequent to that. We actually did a Facebook Live video the first night I was out there, which has now been viewed by over 21,000 people. And I met up with a Columbia Law School classmate of mine who I had not seen in probably a decade. But that just shows the amount of energy, of caring that we see in this country. And it's not going to go away. It's only going to grow. And I predict that in Virginia, which we have one of the only off-year elections after Donald Trump's inauguration, Virginia is going to be the match that lights the wildfire of progressive change all across this country.
Justin.
And we are going to see a growing spirit and see victories for people to make sure that they have more opportunity.
Now, do you have any more time? Because we've got to take our next break, but do you have any 5-10 more minutes? Or do you have
I do. Absolutely. I'm happy to stay on.
Okay. Please stay on, Justin Fairfax. We'll be right back.
Washington, D.C.'s News Talk, 1450 AM WOS and 95.9 FM.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oaks. The program is Everything Cooperative. We have Mr. Justin Fairfax on the line, who's running for Virginia Lieutenant Governor. This program is sponsored by the National Cooperative Bank. The NCB's mission is to help cooperatives grow by supporting and being an advocate for America's cooperatives and their members. Placing special emphasis, Justin, listen to this, placing special emphasis on serving the needs of communities that are economically challenged. And you got a lot of rural communities in Virginia, and I've had people on rural, and they say that 80% of those communities that are economically challenged are rural communities. And then you have inner city, as you know, that mainly blacks and browns live in that are economically challenged. And NCB's mission is to loan money to these these communities to help create co-ops or expand co-ops, because co-ops, I've found in doing this program, they are developed to solve a community problem. And one guy said, if there's no community problem, there's no need for a cooperative, where people come together to solve community problems. There's a book out, and Richmond is in that book. It's called Cities Building Wealth, and it was produced by the Democracy Collaborative out of University of Maryland. And they said Virginia has a committee, an organization, a group that the governor put in place called Building Wealth out of this book. And it's talking about the things you're talking about, creating small businesses. And I would like to see them be cooperatives. Oh, did you know that most co-ops, they don't fail? Like you do when you start a guy comes and says, or woman comes and says, I want to start this business. They go start it, and there's a 70% chance it's going to fail in the first 5 years, because 70% of them do. Not in co-ops. I think it's only like 20%. It's either 10 or 20% fail. That's because there's a lot of emphasis on the education, a lot of emphasis on the training, and you get a group of people working together with different skills, which causes it to. So, what are your thoughts about putting more money and more effort into building co-ops within Virginia to help these economically challenged communities?
I absolutely support it. And as you mentioned, in Richmond, there's an innovative idea that was implemented several years back, the Office of Community Wealth Building. And that may be what's referenced in that book, which I look forward to reading. And again, like you mentioned, it really does tackle these issues around economically impoverished and challenged communities, and making them more viable, pumping more of that, as I mentioned, that oxygen of opportunity into these communities, helping more people afford to buy and keep and pass down a home. As we know that is oftentimes the largest investment that most families will ever make. It also forms the foundation of most families' intergenerational wealth building opportunities. And so we want to make sure that more people have access to home ownership, the responsible home ownership. Again, starting and growing small businesses, particularly, as you mentioned, co-ops are great examples of businesses that do well and that, again, educate along the way. I'm an attorney. My wife is a dentist, as I mentioned, and we both in our professions have, continuing learning education requirements. So, you get your degree, but you also have to every year learn something new and stay apace. And so we think that co-ops really form, an opportunity for people to do that in business and in life as well, to continually grow in their knowledge base and to learn from so many others. And we know that diversifying is always a positive thing, whether you're talking about investing in the stock market or, in various businesses, or in, the representation that we have in our leadership statewide and across the country. So I absolutely support opportunities to further, support co-ops and small businesses and wealth building opportunities and educational opportunities. As you mentioned, it's key. There have been a lot of people who haven't started with very much in terms of, economic resources, but because they got the education, and frankly, we are, an example of that. Because they were given the educational opportunities and then given economic opportunities down the line, you really get to change the entire trajectory of your family's circumstances. And we really want that for everybody, no matter, again, where they start, what their last name is, color of their skin. We want them to get that exact same shot at the American dream. And co-ops are a great way to do that.
There's some research out about housing co-ops, and it says that they looked at the HUD-funded housing co-ops compared to the HUD-funded apartment buildings. And the HUD-funded co-ops outperformed the apartment buildings in every variable. The rent was lower. There was less foreclosures. People felt better about their living conditions. The housing was better quality. It was better kept up. And they were able to create financial wealth. So I always ask the question, why doesn't HUD put more money into housing co-ops? I've got a couple of answers to that. But I'd like to say the housing co-ops are a phenomenal way to get people educated, because I'd like to see where everyday people learn how to run a business. And this is all a multifamily housing is a business. So that 200-unit business may bring in $1 million to $2 million a year. So they're running $1 million, $2 million a year with all of the problems of any other business, and they learn. And I've had people on this program they're limited equity co-ops. They say the training they got in how to run a business they took in their home, like savings, budgeting, how to solve problems when there's a conflict.
Yes, absolutely.
And Justin,
absolutely.
You were like this one. On this program, I've learned, in the Bible, it says where two or more are gathered, God is there also. And I have said it, I've learned in this co-op, I do property management. That's what I do. And that's where I learned of this managing multifamily.
That's tremendous.
So in going to board meetings and work, there's always a problem. There's two people that have different issues, okay?
That's right.
And learning how to solve those issues, you need God. So I said, where two or more are gathered, there's God, because there's going to be conflict. And co-ops, you learn how to solve those conflicts. You really learn how to listen to each other and learn how to solve conflict. And also in co-ops, there's social wealth that's developed, because people in co-ops learn how to work with police and learn how to work with lieutenant governors, which you will become with our listeners' support. So they learn how to work, and they build social wealth, not only financial wealth, but social wealth.
Absolutely. That's a brilliant, fantastic point, and I completely agree. And, and frankly, it would be great if we could start to, implement some of that in our, political life and discourse. And I think that's the opportunity that we have here. You talk about that level of cooperation in terms of building wealth for everyone, resolving conflicts that, invariably come up, but doing so in a way where we, disagree without being disagreeable, and always focused on how do we create more opportunity for others. Co-ops, what I love about them is that at their heart, they can't be selfish.
Right.
It can't be about me, and just myself and my family. It's got to be about, all of us. And that's how they succeed. And I think that our politics would benefit from that. Our public and civil discourse would benefit from that. And Vernon, I think it's a great thing and a great example. And I hope it continues. My family, we have financed things through credit union here in Virginia, and it's been a great experience. And this is one example, again, of how co-ops can really powerfully create opportunity for people and build, as you mentioned, actual economic wealth, but also social wealth, as you called it. I think it's a fantastic point and model.
There's a co-op in Cleveland run by a black lady that was formed several years ago. She is, and I wish I could call her name right now, but the Co-op Hall of Fame, she's going to be inducted into that this year. But just talking about, housing and healthcare and all of the different things the credit union can get into. And then a lot of times, there was one started in El Paso, Texas by 5 white men. They pooled $10 each. And now they have over $1 billion of assets. Just like the rural electrics are started because the larger companies wouldn't go into rural because it costs too much to put up those poles and wires. So people come together and solve it. Same thing with a co-op in these areas, black communities. these economically challenged communities, whether they're rural or urban, too often there's not a food. There's a food desert. There's no food, or there's no financial institutions. And so these co-ops will come in place. And you got several food co-ops in Virginia.
Yes, that's exactly right. You know, and everything from, as you mentioned, meat and poultry, dairy. Many people may not know, but you know, there's information that almost 1 million Virginia homes, farms, and businesses depend on electric co-ops for electricity. Something that's been published by the Virginia Cooperative Council. And, a lot of the products that we buy, both, with regard to, food and agricultural products, but also financial products and services, insurance and savings and checking accounts when they're with credit unions. I mean, they are the product of cooperatives. And as you mentioned, they are very successful on the whole. And so, again, it really is a great model. It focuses people on, I think, exactly the right things, which is economic empowerment, education, wealth building. As I mentioned, our campaign for Lieutenant Governor, our lead issue is economic security and opportunity, and everything that falls under that. And so we talk about home ownership, vocational training, higher education affordability, student loan reform, access to capital to start and grow a small business. These are all things that co-ops really promote and support, and it really helps people change the trajectory of their lives. As I mentioned, we have been on this incredible and mighty journey in our lives, and we have gotten to live the American dream. And I feel so blessed every single day to be in a country and to have been given the opportunities that I've been given in life. And so we have a spiritual debt, and we're going to repay that by making sure more young people, more families get the exact same shot in life that we did.
Well, Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan and Donald Trump, their fathers left them with millions of dollars.
Right.
And they still say they did it on their own. It's
right,
amazing the view that people have, okay? Where when my father died, and he gave me a lot of common sense, a lot of good knowledge, a lot of sort of drive and hope and the things that you talked about. But when he died, he had $2,000 worth of debt that I paid off. And so that was the financial wealth that he left us. And there were 6 of us. So having to sort of pool together and come together and get wealth and get knowledge is we've had to do it a little bit different from Donald Trump and Paul Ryan. And Mitt Romney.
That's right. I mean, you have some folks who, born on third base and thought they hit a triple, and that's just, that's a fact of life for those folks. But, I think your story, again, is a great one. And I appreciate so much what you shared. About your father, and like you said, it's a story that so many of us have. But what I love about that story, as I mentioned, we all have different versions of the same story. Is that what your father and your family and your community gave you was spiritual wealth? Yep. And you look at you and look at yourself now. Not only have you been able to succeed tremendously in life and be a wonderful example for others, but you are now helping others to do it. And that to me is it's the secret sauce of America, is that opportunity, that American dream, and it is fueled by really spiritual wealth, in my view. If you can get people that, it will lead to economic wealth and resources that they can then pass down, and we've got to focus heavily on that. But just that notion that no matter where you start, if you're given the right tools, you can advance and succeed in the society. It's a beautiful thing. And I think we've got to preserve it, and we've got to enhance it for so many people.
So I had asked you to stay on a few more minutes. We had expected a gentleman by the name of Kali Akunu, who's the co-director of Cooperation Jackson in Jackson, Mississippi, but he hasn't called in. And I had just wanted you to meet each other because you're two great brothers.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that very much. And I would definitely welcome the opportunity to connect with him and thank him for the work that he's doing with cooperatives. And I thank you for the work that you're doing, Vernon. It really is. It's so important. And I hope that, more people will start to focus in on the message and on the resources that co-ops provide, because it really is a pathway, to the American dream in many ways. And so we've got to continue to support our cooperatives and educational opportunities, economic opportunities. And I know the American dream is real because I've lived it.
Right.
And so many of us have. And I just want to make sure that it is actual and real for more people. More people believe that it's not real in their lives.
We got to take another break. I love talking to you. Please, if you can hang on, please do, and we'll continue this conversation. I only have 15 more minutes of the show, but we'll be right back. Please don't touch that.
Great. Thank you.
Washington, D.C.'s News Talk, 1450 AM WOS and 95.9 FM.
Information is power. Welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes, and we have Justin Fairfax on the line with us, who's running for lieutenant governor. Justin, what does the lieutenant governor do?
Yes, that's a great question that many people have asked. So the lieutenant governor has several responsibilities. First, of course, to serve in the instance that the governor is unable to carry out his or her duties. But also, per the Virginia Constitution, the lieutenant governor presides as the president of the Senate of Virginia. So you sit in the Senate when they're in session, and you break ties in the case of a tie-breaking vote. We currently have 21 Republicans and 19 Democrats in the Virginia Senate. Up until 2015, we actually had a tied Senate 20-20. And so the lieutenant governor would routinely, cast a tie-breaking vote on, policies across the board having to do with economic issues, the budget, and the environment, women's reproductive health care, so many other things that come before the General Assembly. So those are sort of the top responsibilities. But as mentioned earlier, the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia also sits on a number of boards and commissions, including the Council on Virginia's Future. I mentioned the Climate Change and Resiliency Update Commission, the Military Advisory Commission, and so many others, the Disabilities Commission, so many others that really deal with, some of the most pressing issues facing the Commonwealth of Virginia and the regional economy. As you know, we have a regional economy here with Maryland, D.C., and Northern Virginia. Metro is a great example of where, we have to have regional cooperation and where we also have to use that future is now lens and prism. Unfortunately, the system is going through, so many issues. And I think we've got to, get out of the mode of sort of kicking the can down the road and having deferred maintenance. The Metro system, as we know, is just over 40 years old, started running in 1976. But I think because we kicked the can down the road and deferred maintenance and didn't invest where we needed to along the way, we then had a collapse in many ways of the system. So we want to avoid that. We want to make sure our infrastructure is strong, our educational system is strong. We have great schools in the Commonwealth of Virginia, including great public schools, and we want to support those schools and our teachers and our students and our families in those communities. Many businesses, before they locate somewhere, the top priority and the top question that they ask is, how are the schools? Yep. Because their employees are going to send their kids to those schools, and they have a lot to do with the values, home values that exist in areas. So we just attracted Nestle to Arlington, Virginia, and very proud. It brought 750 jobs. So we want to continue to do that. The Lieutenant Governor of Virginia can play a significant role in that regard. And we have, shown that these are the issues that are top priorities for us and that we carry out over the 4 years if we're fortunate to be elected and to win this primary on June the 13th and then the general election in November of this year.
How did you get Nestle out of California?
I tell you, I know it takes some work. And I'll tell you, our Governor, Terry McAuliffe, is doing a great job. He's, attracted a lot of resources and businesses here to the state, over $1,400 billion, I believe, in capital investment in the last several years, about 188,000 new jobs. And Nestle, of course, was another. Again, I think it really goes to the attractiveness of the Commonwealth of Virginia, our strong school system, our strong infrastructure, and, we're a business-friendly environment. We're a place that, again, really wants to make sure that people have opportunity for economic mobility. Our unemployment rate, is around 4.2%, the lowest in the Southeast. We, at one point, it dipped down to 3.7%. So you really saw, significant, lack of unemployment, which is a great thing, and job growth. And so we want to continue and accelerate that. And the things that we focused on, again, in our Lieutenant Governor campaign, economic security and opportunity issues, being a welcoming, diverse, inclusive Commonwealth, protecting, women's reproductive health care, but also making sure that, there is across the board equality. Equal pay for equal work. I tell people my mother was a pharmacist raising 4 kids. She needed to be paid equally to her male counterparts to support her family. And because she was given that opportunity, again, she now has 4 college graduates, 2 law school graduates, and 4 professionals who have their own families and are doing very well in the society. So we have got to make sure that we treat everyone equally, particularly women, across the panoply of issues, economic and otherwise, healthcare and otherwise. No gender discrimination, also protecting the LGBTQ community. We have marriage equality here. We should always support non-discrimination across the board. So I think all of those things make Virginia a very attractive destination for companies and for families. And we want to, again, accelerate the job growth, the opportunity growth for everyone, and support our small businesses. As I mentioned, my wife and I are small business owners. I was a federal prosecutor here, so dedicated to public service and keeping our community safe, but also to giving people a second chance. We've also highlighted criminal justice reform as being a key policy platform. We have to give appropriate second chances. We have a system that in many places is broken, incredibly expensive, discriminatory in many ways, and we spend a lot of money locking juveniles up, and we could spend a fraction of that providing them with educational opportunities and enrichment opportunities earlier on in life. And the ROI on that is significant, both financial and morally. I think we can save so many more of our young people in our communities by investing in them earlier rather than waiting on the back end until they get in trouble.
So I just went into Fairfax for LG, Lieutenant Governor, FAIRFAXFORLG.com. Fairfax for Lieutenant Governor. And I see your picture up here. You look like you're about 22, man.
You're very kind. It was a good day and a good photo shoot. You're very kind.
You got an undergrad and a law degree, and you have a wife and two children, 7 and 5 years old. Yes,
and very fortunate and blessed. My wife and I actually met in college at Duke University. We have known each other now for almost 20 years. We have been married. This year will be our 11-year wedding anniversary in June. I'm also, to your point, I'm actually 37. In about a week and a half, I'll actually be 38. My birthday is coming up on February the 17th. So I'll be 38 years old, which is the same age of some other lieutenant governors who ran and won. Don Beyer, who's now a congressman in Virginia, was a great lieutenant governor for 2 terms and is now a great congressman. Chuck Robb, who was a great lieutenant governor and governor of Virginia and also senator of Virginia. They both were elected lieutenant governor right about the age of 38, 39. And so, we've seen, folks look to that generation of leadership and to the new, fresh, positive ideas as a way forward. We've seen that in the past, and I think there is a tremendous hunger for that right now. People don't, even think, along partisan lines as much. They just want change, positivity. They want to see a ray of hope in our politics, and I think that's what we're providing. As I mentioned, I believe that Virginia will be the match that sparks the wildfire of progressive change all across this country, and that's the opportunity we have here in 2017, and it starts with the June 13th primary. So
you can go on Justin for Lieutenant Governor, Justin Fairfax,
Fairfax4LG.com.
LG.com. And it has here the endorsements and news and issues, and you can sign up to help work, or there's another dot you can put for donate.
Absolutely, and we would, appreciate it. All the support we can get. We've had some people give, as little as $1 because they said that, look, we are, I may not have a lot of resources, but I'm going to work and I'm passionate and I want to invest in this movement. And people are getting excited in a way that we have not seen for a very long time. We, as I mentioned, have driven 20,000 miles around the Commonwealth of Virginia in the last 10 months and have met people over the last 4 years. Vernon, at the top, actually, I ran for Attorney General of Virginia 4 years ago in 2013, was 33 years old at the time, so I probably really looked 22 at that point. But I left my job as a federal prosecutor, again, very passionate about what we can do to support people, give them more opportunities through public service. And in that campaign, a lot of people said, you don't stand a chance. You're going to lose about 30 points, and we'll never hear from you again. But because we stepped out on faith and brought that powerful message of economic security and opportunity around the Commonwealth, we ended up winning nearly 49% of the statewide vote in the Democratic primary 2013, and we were endorsed by the Washington Post in that race. So it was a powerful response, and we are seeing that grow by a factor of 10 this time around. People are really excited about this because it really is about them. It's about allowing their kids to go to college affordably, not be crushed by student loan debt, having more people buy their own home, start their own small business, reform our criminal justice system, save our young people from incarceration unnecessarily. We spend $150,000 per year to incarcerate a juvenile in our state prison system. Imagine if we took a fraction of that and gave them jobs earlier in life, gave them enrichment opportunities, educational opportunities, fully funded K through 12 and pre-K education, made it universal. We could change the course of history.
I'm committed to that. It's when you look at how much it costs to put somebody in jail versus to educate them, it's just staggering.
Yeah, it is astronomical what we pay, particularly when, as you mentioned, measured against what it would cost to educate them. And so I'm dedicated and committed to that.
We're almost out of time, and I just want to put this little bug in your ear. There are co-ops in prisons in Italy and other places in Puerto Rico around the world. We only have 1 minute, so what message would you like to leave people with?
Yes. So the message I would leave them with is we would be honored, again, to have your support in the June 13th primary for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. Again, our website is fairfax4lg.com. And we are on a special journey together. And everyone who joins us is joining us on that journey to really use the spiritual wealth that we've got in our lives to repay the spiritual debt that we owe and to make sure everybody gets the exact same shot to live the American dream, to have a safe journey, to be educated, to have economic opportunity, and that their families and their kids and their grandkids can inherit a much better life and do better than we did. I think that is what the American dream is all about.
I've just hit the donate button, and so you'll see something in there for you, baby. Thanks so very much.
God bless.
Thank you. All right, have a great one.
Thank you. You too. Thanks so much.
Everybody have a cooperative week. We'll see you next Thursday.
Washington, D.C.'s News Talk, 1450 AM WO.